Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. Today we're continuing our series on the Disney Alice in Wonderland spin-offs and we're looking at the classic 90s Disney Channel show Adventures in Wonderland. This will be the first of a two-part episode. I'm joined as usual by Jenna, aka Phantomwise, a fount of knowledge in all things Alice, and we had so much to discuss with this show. Next week we'll be talking about a bunch of specific episodes that Jenna thought would be the most interesting and relevant to the history of the show. But today we'll start things out talking about the show in general and focus most of our discussion on all the different characters that make up this version of Wonderland. I remember watching this show as a kid, but I barely remember anything about it. And I'm not sure exactly how I would have watched it because we didn't have cable. So they must have had repeats on regular television at some point.
Oh yeah, they used to at some point later during the show, so it premiered on the Disney Channel in 1992, and then it was kind of a Disney Channel exclusive for a little bit. They did have preview days where the channel would open up and they would show some of their stuff they had to kind of entice you to subscribe. Um, you could actually they have these on YouTube where you can watch it like a full day of a preview day because people would take these preview days and just rewatch them over and over. Um, anyway, and then at some point, probably like later, like mid to late 90s, they did air on um, public channels. But
That's
my
probably when I
knowledge,
saw it.
yeah, my knowledge of the history of these public channels is a little bit more sketchier because I wasn't able to find a lot of information. I did find at some point like a advertisement for an episode on a public channel. So like it happened. In fact, some of the I might as well say like just starting off because it's some of the Disney Plus episodes of this are actually from tapes meant for the public channels. Um,
Mm.
so like
Well, one of the
one
ones
of
I
the
watched had bumpers and talked about like it might have been something for educational purposes or something.
yeah uh, there's been different versions of different bumpers. Particular well when they used to air on the Disney Channel originally, it always had like bumpers for the oh this is recommended by Teachers Association or something. Um,
Yeah, that's what it was. That's yeah.
yeah, and on Disney Plus there are a couple different versions. Like the I Am the Walrus episode has like a special bumper. You're watching a special episode of Adventures in
Oh,
Wonderland or something.
that's the one it was
Yeah,
because I was watching, I was like, why is this on there? And then once we got into the story, I was like, oh, this is like about racism. So they're trying to teach kids, and this is like a special education
yeah.
episode just for that. Okay.
I don't know the facts of this. I've never been able to find verification, but I think that episode might have been used, or might have been like given out to the schools because they did have educational kits, which I do actually have, and they might have gone further and provided some episodes for educational purposes.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that might be where the Disney Plus tape comes from. Because the Disney Plus episodes are very odd because most of them seem to be from the original run on the Disney Channel, and then some of them seem to be from different runs on different channels. And I don't know why. The I Am the Walrus episode seems to be from like an educational version of it, and it's missing two really small little scenes from the actual episode. I didn't feel the need to tell you to watch a YouTube version or anything though, because it's pretty small scenes. They don't really mean anything.
Hmm.
We'll talk about it later, I guess. And then there's versions where it's like I think one I remember particular adventures is Spectacular Man, which wasn't one I recommended to you, but I remember thinking like, wow, they've really like did some weird editing choices on this one. Anyway, so I've never gotten like an answer on why some of these episodes are strange. Like maybe something happened to the tapes while they were in Disney archives and they went reached out to other archives. I don't know. But yeah, so the episodes are inconsistent and there's actually missing content
Hmm.
on Disney Plus. Anyway.
I guess that would be something that only a super fan would notice because I didn't notice any weird cuts in what I watched.
Yeah, I only noticed because there used to be somebody who uploaded the Mel Pearson had uploaded a lot of episodes, not all of them, but a lot of episodes from the original run. And I used to rewatch them quite a bit. So when I was rewatching them on Disney Plus, I was like, isn't there something missing here?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, took a super fan. I'm sure maybe some other fans noticed, but I haven't seen anyone talk about it. If anyone does want to see like the full episodes, most of them are on YouTube. Not all of them. I also haven't been able. Some of them I won't be able to verify whether they are the full episode or not. Like I started noticing like the episode lengths are also pretty inconsistent.
Hmm.
So we talked about Alice's Wonderland Bakery last time, and that show set Alice in Wonderland around the concept of food and I guess in a way about families as well. This
Hmm.
one um, uses Alice more as a stepping stone to talk about English and literature and language skills.
The more I watched, the more I was picking that up.
Yeah, and personally, I think they do a really good job most of the time, and I kind of feel like it vibes a little bit more with Alice as a story because Alice is so, you know, well, it is
It
literature.
makes more sense than the
Yeah,
baking aspect.
it does. I think it's a better connection. That said, though, there's never any really strong connection. Like Alice isn't like a writer trying to, she likes to write stories or something. I think maybe that would have been a little bit stronger if they had done that. Um,
Well, the one episode was like she was given a school assignment to write a story.
yeah, that's actually the first episode, or first produced episode, anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, her story in the making. I don't know if you want to jump into the episodes already, or do you want to do an overview of
I mean, we
topics?
could talk about the characters first.
Yeah, let's talk about the characters first, and before we go into the episodes.
It's interesting the different ways that they chose to take the characters, but I like the choices. It makes this version unique. Just the things that they did that are different than everything else. Like Tweedledum and Tweedledee are not idiots, like round, rolling, bouncy idiots, and like they are in a lot of versions. Like this is not true to the book, of course.
Yeah, to be honest, they're kind of usually the smartest ones.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm thinking more of like I don't know, the Disney one or the ones where they like I mean it's true to the book. They get into a battle over a rattle. So they are idiots. But
yeah, yeah,
I like that they put them in a totally different direction and they're obviously they're not like geniuses or anything. But I don't know. I liked that they set these apart.
yeah. Well, I take one step back. I actually love the cast for the show.
Hmm.
Um, I think everyone is casted excellently. And
Yes.
so, stepping forward back into the Tweedles in particular, they have a great chemistry with each other. Obviously they're not brothers actually, but they feel like they're brothers. And everyone in this Wonderland they could be a little bit naive, but these brothers also like are pretty intelligent compared to the other characters. I don't know.
Hmm.
Some episodes, one character might be more intelligent. Another episode, that same character might be not as intelligent. Um,
Yeah, I noticed that, but
yeah,
I think it's like par for the course for kid shows that they're I guess their level of intelligence needs to be
varies.
whatever it needs to be for the story that they're trying to tell.
To be fair, I guess that is true with people too, because people are intelligent in different ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so I enjoy the chemistry the actors have with each other. I enjoy the chemistry they have with Alice as well. I kind of feel like they act like her brothers sometimes, and obviously they're very good dancers and singers as well.
Hmm.
My only thing I would take a step back on is I don't like how they presented them at first in the show. So you might have said this yourself when they're the first episode, and if you watch Arrivederci Roma as well, the fifth episode,
I
they're
watched
wearing
both of those, yeah.
Hammer. Yeah, they're wearing like MC Hammer ripoff
I
outfits.
thought that too. The first couple of episodes, I didn't like them as much. I was like, feels kind of weird. But then in later episodes, they got a lot better, I thought.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of true for the whole show, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the characters are, the actors aren't fully in touch with their characters yet, and it takes a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But the Tweedles got off to a really rough start. Um, because they're wearing these, to be honest, like they're not even nice MC Hammer ripoff outfits. The burgundy and silver, it's awful, and they just don't look good. And it feels like they're trying too hard to be. And for anyone who's listening and hasn't watched the show yet, I don't know why you're listening to this, but they are both black men, and it feels like they're trying to be like, oh, these guys are hip.
Yes,
They're like
exactly.
you know, and
That's
it's
that's
like,
why that's why it felt weird in the first couple of episodes, and then they got. I think they kind of
and then they calm
didn't fully
down.
drop it, but it was like
Yeah.
they toned it down.
Yeah, they tone it down, and actually that ends up making them more cooler than they tried to make them in the first place. But
Oh yeah,
you you
definitely.
don't need to try to be cool.
Yes.
Um, Once they tone down, I feel like they actually do become the cool ones.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that the actors, I think it was Robert, he actually told them when they showed them the costumes, was like, you are really dating this show, and it's not like this isn't good. Because, like that was so specific to like 1991.
The whole first episode, I kept thinking, this is so 90s. I feel like I'm watching a weird Full House episode.
Yeah, but the thing is like the whole show is very 90s, and that's partially why I enjoy it. But like the Tweedles were like rough 90s. And it's not even like that style did not persist throughout the rest of the 90s either. It was like that one specific time period. Uh,
You're right.
that,
Yeah. It was like right
yeah.
out of the 80s and then it disappeared after that.
So it tickled me to learn that one of the actors, I think it was Robert, it might have been Harry, but it was just like, you're really gonna date this show, and yeah, I imagine it probably did, because like it reran until at least 1998, but maybe it might have been able to last a little bit longer if they hadn't. But who could tell? Oh, I would also say I actually really love their second outfits with the multicolor vests. I think it's
Mm.
really cute.
Well, multicolor reminds me, I have to mention the March Hare's outfit. I loved his suit. It's so 90s, but it's the kind of 90s design that I just love. It's so I don't know. I love it.
I feel like both of the March Hare suits, as well as the Tweedle's second outfits, aged a lot better than the MC Hammer outfits.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah,
The his suit is the thing that people associate with the 90s, but in a very positive way. Like it's the aesthetic that people go back to and really like.
yeah. So, do we want to talk about the March Hare now? Well, I guess tangentially the Mad Hatter too, but in regards
Yeah.
to the March Hare, Reese, who's the actor Reese Holland, he did an amazing job. They would have to cornrow his hair to put the ears on. I don't know if you noticed, but he like flops his head a lot to make the ears flop around.
I wondered if the whole thing was just one giant headpiece slash wig slash ear thing.
Essentially, and it was very painful because they would cornrow his hair really, really tightly to keep
Uh,
the ears on. But he evidently just be like, just do it, we gotta do it. And he would have to get ready before the rest of the cast. Or, well, I guess
Even
besides
the
Patrick with
rabbit
the White
looks like he
Rabbit.
would take the
No,
most.
Rabbit probably took longer, actually. Sorry. I think he might have been the second person. I don't know. Basically, both the rabbit-ish characters obviously had to spend way more time getting ready.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, the way he portrays the character is really the March Hare in general, I think gets pushed to the side a lot.
He's
And
kind of the sidekick between the two, usually.
yeah, he gets forgotten sometimes, like merged with the White Rabbit. So first off, I like that the show made him a character pretty much on par with the Mad Hatter. Obviously, some fans are probably gonna prefer the Mad Hatter over the March Hare, but he's never like a sidekick, really. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, I don't
No,
know.
it
I
didn't
feel like
feel like
it's
that in this one. I just meant in general
yeah,
that
no,
he's usually a sidekick.
I think a lot of people might still term him as the sidekick of the Mad Hatter, even in this one. But I feel like in this one, it's more equal, in my
Yeah.
opinion, that they are friends. It's interesting because he kind of plays him a bit dumb, but he's also like thinking about like the progression of the character over time. He actually kind of makes him more of a smug, snarky sometimes. But he's also very sweet. So he's, I don't, it's an interesting characterization, and I think he does a good job. It's a good version of the March Hare.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Mad Hatter?
He was great too.
Yeah,
I liked his portrayal. His suit was not as mad as some versions have made him out to be, but it worked for this character. And I liked the purple look. Yeah, I liked him. I thought he made a good Mad Hatter. It wasn't as mad as some versions.
it's interesting in a way that they kind of made the March Hare's outfit more crazy than the Mad
They
Hatter's.
did, definitely.
But I feel like the Mad Hatter is meant to be more, he's a hatter. He's a bit more in tune with fashion, I think
Mm,
is the implication.
yeah.
So instead, the costume is more like exaggerated, like with how long his coat is and like the big buttons. And I guess the March Hare is supposed to be the unfashionable. And I don't know. Um, but John Hoffman plays some very I like how he plays them, which is kind of an idiot, but like fun. I don't know how to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, essentially, like him and the March Hare together, they're hilarious. I think they're fantastic in this show, and I you might be able to put together pieces that the Hatter is probably was the favorite of very many people. He apparently got a lot of fan mail from adults, um,
I can see
adult
that.
women.
Yeah. I can
Yeah,
see that.
I remember I was rewatching some of these episodes, and I was like, man, the Hatter and Hare scenes are really really good. There's actually an episode I considered recommending, but I was like, I don't want to recommend too much, and especially have it so focused on the Hatter and Hare. But there's a lot of content concerning them, and they have this one episode called "Welcome Back, Hatter," where Hatter thinks he's going to move to a castle that he won in a sweepstakes, but he didn't actually win a castle; it was a miniature castle. Um, but he leaves anyway, and the March Hare is devastated because they were best friends, but he's trying to be supportive and not hold back his friend. It's an episode for children to relate to if their best friend moves.
Yeah.
But it kind of digs into deep like how good friends they are and how well they do together as a team. And I, especially so many Alice adaptations where the Hatter is kind of the singular character. There's no March Hare character,
Hmm.
or the March Hare is like pushed all the way back in the side. I really like whenever there's a good team, Hatter and Hare.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's my thought process on this. Basically, is I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, they were a good team.
Yeah. All right. Any other characters you want to talk about?
Well, one of my favorite characters, well, probably mostly because the costume is just amazing, is the caterpillar.
Really?
I thought he looked so cool. Like it was so weird. And like obviously it doesn't look like a real caterpillar, but like there's like three people inside this thing to give him three sets of hands. And
Yeah.
I love it when people do that for characters, like make a giant he's not an alien, but like in science fiction type things, like they'll put a bunch of people inside a costume to do puppetry that wouldn't be able to be done by just one person. And I just think that looks so cool.
That's very interesting because I've never heard anybody say they like the caterpillar.
I mean, he's not like an amazing character.
Yeah.
It's in terms of just like if it was a person as the caterpillar and he did the exact same thing, he would be completely unmemorable. But just his costume, I just loved that.
Well, let's talk about the caterpillar. I say the caterpillar is probably the weakest character in the show, but that's only really because the way they structured the show kind of ended up pigeonholing the caterpillar. And
Well, he's sort of separated from everybody else,
yes,
partly
he's
because,
isolated.
yeah, I think it's just because of the practicality of the costume. There's three people in that thing. You can't have the
Yeah,
caterpillar crawling around and doing things with everybody else. The I
yeah,
One episode I watched had him like go on a trip with everybody, but they were like sitting around a fire telling stories. And that was
yeah,
like I didn't watch tons of episodes, so maybe there's more episodes, but that was the only time that I saw him somewhere other than the mushroom field or wherever he lives.
yeah. So, or mushroom forest, I think was what they would call the
Okay.
set. But he's um I actually kind of have a bit of an explanation for why this happens. Andy Copley was the executive producer of the show, and I've actually talked to her. She's very, very nice. And before this, she worked on Pee-wee's Playhouse. So when I talked to her, I did ask her about like her work on Pee-wee's Playhouse like influenced her choice for Adventures Wonderland. And if I remember correctly, she said it kind of did, but in the sense that she feels like children do better when you have like different segments. And which, if you watch Pee-wee's Playhouse, there's a lot of different like animated segments and stuff.
Hmm.
So in the sense, especially because they kind of like film this as a real life cartoon, she wanted to have like a bring in some cartoon animation into it, or not technically cartoon animation into it, and they needed a character to do this to read the stories that would become these animations. I think so it kind of ended up shooting the caterpillar in the feet because he's the one they chose to tell these stories, which makes sense from a storytelling perspective. But over the course of the show, he ends up being more isolated from the other characters because of the way they designed the structure of his parts. Because
Hmm.
his point as a character is to tell these stories, and unfortunately, I just don't think it works very well. It's weird though, because when you think about it as a concept, I would think, oh, that's a good concept, especially for a show where you're trying to teach children English and language skills and literature and storytelling. Like that, it all sounds like a great idea, but in actuality, I don't know about you, but most people who watch the show and become fans of it, they don't really like the caterpillar parts. Like firstly, as much as I think the claymation is wonderfully done, it was by Will Vinton Studios. They did Return to Oz, Moonwalker, Captain EO, the California Raisins. Wonderful studio. They did all this amazing work.
Yeah.
Um, and this claymation is done because they wanted it to still look like a book, kind of like illustrations, but at the same time with some like dimension to it. So it's like a multi-plane animation with different layers of glass, which is astounding. Like it looks fantastic.
Hmm.
I don't want anything to do with it usually. I skip it because well, to me, it grinds the episode to a halt when I watch it, and many times they're writing these stories and these books to like go with 2 episodes. They are not unique per episode. So sometimes the stories are like barely relevant to what's going on in the actual episode.
So one story will appear in 2 episodes. It'll be the same one repeated.
Yeah, maybe even 3. I thought one day maybe I
Huh.
would like track it and like identify each individual story and be like, okay, these are the episodes they're in. What's the quote unquote moral? How do they relate to the episodes they're in? But also, I'm really lazy and I haven't done that. So it's sometimes they don't feel specific enough to actually be helpful in the episode, like helpful towards the character. Sometimes it doesn't even like help progress the story forward. Like the characters just don't listen. Um, and which is kind of funny in a sense, but it does kind of make you like, what's the point of this?
I can see that. I think when I was watching it, it felt to me like obviously it grinds the story to a halt, but it felt to me the same way that I feel about all the random segments in Sesame Street. Because I remember watching Sesame Street as a kid and liking the shorts that came in between the main stuff, but like I wanted it to get back to the story with Big Bird and Snuffy and whatever.
Yeah,
So I likened it to that, and it didn't really bother me because I felt like it was just something in that vein. But thinking back, I would always wish that those would get over faster when I was a kid. I thought of them more like commercials than I did as an actual form of entertainment.
I guess what's weird is like for some reason I feel like that works better in Sesame Street.
Well, probably because they've got so many different things going on. With this, it's just the one thing that they stopped the episode for.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's just the claymation, which is amazing claymation. That's the thing. It's like, oh, would you want different segments with different things? And with this show, I would actually say no. But part of that is because I love the part with the cast so much. I like the cast, I like the stories that I wouldn't want it to be broken into different segments. And
Hmm.
I think that might be part of why I don't like the animation parts because I want to be back to the people. So it's I don't know. I feel like this show might have done better without the animated segments, but at the same time, I can see why it's there I could see what they were doing. And weirdly, I feel like it does work in other shows. For some reason, the stars weren't aligning for this one, in
Hmm.
my opinion, for me, I guess. But I feel like for a lot of people it doesn't.
When I was watching it, I didn't love the stories he was telling.
Yeah,
I think the thing that I just liked about the caterpillar is just watching the technical aspect of it.
yeah,
Because I like even when I'm watching something like the Muppets, I don't always get fully lost in the story because I'm thinking about how they're doing this, and I like watching it for that aspect beyond just the telling of the story.
yeah.
And I think that's the part of my brain that liked the caterpillar. I think if I had watched a ton more of the show, I probably would have gotten tired of it because it would have been the same thing over and over. But just like the 5 to 10 episodes, however many I watched, just watching him, I just liked watching his hands move and how they interacted with each other. And I'm just imagining the people inside and wondering how they're coordinating this. I just like
Oh,
stuff
it's
like
a
that.
lot of practice.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a lot of practice. Wesley Mann, who plays the head of the caterpillar, uh,
Did he play the
he
top arms too, or was that where were there
yeah,
four
he
people
played the
in there?
top arms.
Okay.
Um, he was oh gosh, can you imagine if it was another person? That'd be like
I was already thinking, how
yeah,
are they fitting these people in there so well?
yeah.
Like they're really stacked up on top of each other.
I think there might be a picture somewhere, but I can't remember. But Wesley was the top. I think he does a really good job actually. This is a character that I feel like could potentially be really annoying, especially in the
Uh-huh.
context that he brings an animated short, which is already can already be kind of annoying if it's not a welcome short, and then a character that's kind of a bookworm. Like it has the potential to not be a likable character.
Yeah.
Um, while I don't think the caterpillar is a lovable character compared to the other ones. I think Wesley Mann does a really good job, just like his voice and his face. And I don't think I recommended you any episodes, but they actually had him as recurring characters in other episodes, walking around without the makeup, not being the caterpillar.
Oh no,
Um,
I don't think I saw anything like that. I think I would have
yeah,
noticed because I would have recognized his face.
he has a unique face. I did watch the show somewhat as a kid. I have very few memories. But to be honest, I mainly remember Wesley Mann from That's So Raven, where he played the principal. Um,
I need to find a picture of him because I used to watch that So Raven when it was on our local channels too. And I remember the
he's the
name.
principal that would spit.
Oh, okay, yes, okay.
Yeah,
That's hilarious that that's the same character or the same
yeah,
actor.
yeah. Actually, there are a couple people from Adventures in Wonderland who showed up on That's So Raven, and I always wondered if there was a connection, but I never searched deeper into it to see if there was. But yeah, so Wesley Mann, he's great, and I think he made the caterpillar more likable than he had the potential to be unlikable. I don't know if that makes sense, but he made it
Yeah.
at least okay.
Well, I mean, the caterpillar could sometimes be unlikable in other adaptations anyway, just the nature of his character.
To be honest, I do think the caterpillar is a really hard character to play
Hmm.
because most of the time I feel like he comes off very boring.
Either boring or angry.
Yeah, and like I'm trying to even think of other caterpillars I like. Um, I like Sammy Davis Jr., but he's not really playing a good caterpillar. He's
I
playing
forgot
himself
that
as a
I
character.
forget that he's a caterpillar because he gets up and he's dancing around.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, like I think that's also part of the problem with the caterpillar as a character is he's kind of stuck where he
Yeah.
is.
Well, if it's a live action thing, it's hard to make something that looks like a caterpillar that a human can be inside. And then to on top of that, make something that can move.
Yeah, unless you get interpretive with it. I like how the Royal Ballet does it, but it doesn't.
I still need to see
That's a
that one. That
ballet.
one, we should do that one this year because I wanted to watch that one for ages. I need to watch
Oh,
that.
you still haven't watched it? Oh
No,
my
no,
goodness,
we
you need to
should do
watch
that one
it.
this year sometime.
Okay, all right. I'll hold you to it. You need to watch it. It's been long enough.
It has.
But so I won't spoil it anymore. But the caterpillar is good in that one, but they also kind of do a completely different interpretation of the caterpillar than is really in the books. And I don't really care that they do that because the rest of the ballet I feel is pretty faithful to the book. But anyway, going back, I'm trying to think of any other interpretations I like of the caterpillar. I don't really care for the Disney caterpillar. I think he's just kind of could be
Yeah.
worse. Um,
The only thing that I really like about him is I do enjoy the design, but I like that he turns into a butterfly because you don't always get that, and I think that's a cool little twist on the character.
yeah. So like thinking about it, I don't even really remember 1999. So I remember I didn't hate him.
Um, I can vaguely see him in my head. He was smoking.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and that character, even though that's like my favorite Alice, that character does not come to mind
Doesn't he
anywhere
turn
close
into a
to the
butterfly
first.
too or something? Or he
I
gets
think he
wings?
does, but that
Yeah.
scene is not one of the memorable scenes. It's not one of the reasons I love that version.
Honestly, I think I blank out whenever I watch that scene. I don't remember him. In fact, I think the only other actor I've really actually kind of liked playing the caterpillar is Alan Rickman.
I was
But
just gonna say,
unfortunately, he's in the Tim Burton Alice,
yeah,
and he actually would have been a really good caterpillar in a normal Alice, which is
yeah,
unfortunate. I feel like we were deprived. So, um, anyway, so he doesn't count to me. So I guess Leslie Mann kind of wins my best caterpillar. Yeah. So that's just a realization that I had right now, or at least best talking caterpillar. Yeah,
yeah. A lot of times, other caterpillars, like you said, they're not that memorable, or I just don't like their design.
yeah. So he did a very good job actually.
Yeah, I think you're probably feeling the same way I feel in that, yes, his segments, meh. Like you probably like them less than I did because you've seen so many more than I have.
Yeah,
But him as a character and the way they executed the character, the way he was done, that's what's so great about him.
yeah. But if you ever did watch more of the show, there's at least one episode where Leslie play. I think the first one where he plays another character, um, and so he's playing like a TV host on a TV screen that they're watching for whatever reason for the episode, and the caterpillar is like, "Who's that handsome man?" Like, because it's him. Anyway, so they have fun with it. They did regret making his costume so bulky because they couldn't bring him in with the rest of the cast as easily. But they
Uh-huh.
tried. They would try.
Yeah. Well, the one I watched, they had, I think it was the last episode, they were like around a campfire telling stories. So if they can set up a scene around him, that's the only way they could really use the caterpillar with everybody else because it's just too big.
Yeah, that's what they would have to do essentially. They would have to set things around him. Again, if you watch more episodes, sometimes he will be invited to things and they'll if they can't like realistically put him into the scene and make it work, he'll make an excuse for why he can't be there. He doesn't want to be there. You
Yeah.
saw that in Dinner Fit for a Queen, actually. Alice asked if he was invited to the dinner. He's like, "No, I'm TV shy, camera shy."
Oh, yes. I didn't think about it from that perspective, but yeah, that would be why they did that.
Yeah, because I think they were just like, but like, what would he even do with him? He can't
Yeah.
move and be part of the chaos and in a way that would be satisfying. So they put in that. It's like, oh, he'll tell Alice a story to bring to the dinner.
Which she didn't even tell.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, she tried, but I mean, she offered.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's one of the episodes that involves a story that's not really relevant to what's going on
Uh,
because it was just meant to be a story for her to tell to them at the dinner.
yeah.
But I don't remember. Maybe I wrote a note about it. Um. Anyway, shall we move on to a different character? I didn't expect we'd talk about the caterpillar so long.
Well, we could talk about the Queen because she was probably my other favorite character. More, and for with her, it's more of her personality rather than her overall design. But she did have a good design, but I liked her as a person. I thought she was really fun.
Yeah, Armelia McQueen. I thought the design was interesting because she looks like a gift, all wrapped up. I don't know. That's always the impression I got of her costume. Armelia was, and she's passed on, but now, by the way. but she was such a like sweet person in real life. And even though she plays kind of a cranky, sometimes a mean person, her sweetness still shines through.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess like you just say she shines in this role. It's hard
Uh-huh.
to describe because again, the queen herself is cranky and ill-tempered, but the way she plays it is kind of wholesome. I don't
Yeah,
know,
she's cranky and ill-tempered, but in an endearing way.
yeah, she's likable. And I think part of that is because Armelia is so likable and
Yeah.
she's just a sweet person. So it's funny though because in a way, I guess she's kind of the Oscar the Grouch of the show, which like well, it's Sesame Street, right? Like
Yeah.
Oscar is grouchy and he's meant to be a character for kids to realize that some people aren't going to be people are different, right? And
Yeah.
they aren't going to share, the same viewpoints you're going to, and they might have bad attitudes, but it doesn't mean that they're bad people and that you should still like try to accept them and include them when you can.
Hmm.
And I guess the queen is that kind of character in this universe where she can have a bad attitude and stuff, but like she's still accepted and loved. And
Hmm.
they try to help her like change her perspective on things. Also, funnily though, like she'll have episodes where she's like kind of the parent figure or the mother figure,
Yeah.
um, which we could talk about. So, like for instance, in Pie Noon, she's like the authority figure.
Hmm.
Though then again, she kind of ends up not not helping until the end. Um, but I am the Walrus. She is the authority figure who is very compassionate.
Yeah.
Um, so she's a very complex character, almost kind of a contradiction. But in a way, I feel like a lot of people are contradictions.
Well, like I said earlier, the show kind of made different people be different things for different episodes depending on the story they needed to tell.
Yeah,
And a lot of kids shows will do that because, I mean, yes, in real life people are complicated, but sometimes you've got to have somebody do one thing. And if this was a show for adults, that it wouldn't make sense. But I have a lot more leniency when it's a show for kids, when somebody seems a bit out of character.
I guess that's the weird thing for me. It's like it doesn't bother me enough to even think of it as out of character because
Yeah,
I feel like people are complex,
yeah.
and the queen in particularly is a complex character. At the same time, part of it is probably just because they didn't really think about it that hard.
No, well, especially with the
Yeah,
Walrus episode, they needed an authority figure. And
yeah,
who else are they going to get? Like, she's in charge of the place. She has to be the character who accepts the
yeah.
walrus. Because the others, they're not in any position to force anyone else to realize how wrong they are.
I feel like the queen, kind of, actually, I wonder if it's kind of a thing where it's like how Alice perceives these characters.
It could be.
Yeah, essentially, I don't know. I don't think they thought this deeply about it actually, because
Probably not.
I did talk to one of the writers, and I didn't get the sense they thought this deeply about it. But I do feel like, at least the way I think of it, is Wonderland is essentially kind of a dream world Alice can go to. Like, for instance, a lot of these problems of Wonderland kind of mirror her experiences in the real world or what she's having a problem with,
Hmm.
what she's thinking about. So it's like, I kind of wonder if sometimes if these characters change or like lean on different characteristics they have, it's because that's essentially what she wants to happen. But yeah, I don't think they thought about it that deeply.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Of course, we were remiss to mention, not to mention that Armelia has a great singing voice as well.
Yes. That's one of the things that really stuck out to me with her character. She had, like, everybody was good with their songs, but she was the best.
Yeah, yeah. She was in, I think it was Broadway, or at least off Broadway, Broadway or off Broadway. She's most famous for Ain't Misbehaving. That's actually where she met Ken Page, who plays the Walrus later, and she suggested bringing him on board. Well, actually, all of them have theater history. Now that I was about to say she has theater history, it's like all of them have theater history.
Which makes sense for the show kind of show this is.
Yeah, I guess thinking about it, she's probably like the most friendly version of the Queen of Hearts I could think of.
Oh, by far.
Yeah. Well, I guess Alice's Wonderland Bakery might be a little bit friendlier.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
I haven't seen like I only recently watched that and it's not stuck in my head as one. Like if
yeah,
I'm
same.
thinking of versions of things, Alice's Wonderland Bakery is not one that's going to immediately come to mind for any character.
Honestly, sometimes I still have to kind of remind myself it's a thing that exists. Which, by the
Yeah,
way, I fully expect that I will probably contradict myself in this episode by saying I like something in this show that, maybe I said I didn't like in that show. Because I'm not a
well,
hypocrite.
p- people are complicated, even ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We are complicated. But anyway, that one is probably a little bit friendlier than this Queen of Hearts, but this Queen of Hearts, I think she's a solid version. I like her.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
I guess we can move on to the White Rabbit.
Yeah, I loved that they put him on rollerblades. That's so random, but so very 90s, and I loved it.
So, fun fact, well, two fun facts. Rabbit is my favorite as well. And the other fun fact is Patrick Richwood did not know how to rollerblade.
He must be a quick learner because I thought he was great on them.
He was, yeah. He went to the audition, and I think he originally auditioned for the Hatter, but then they asked him, like, "Do you know how to roller skate?" And he's like, "Yes." But in actuality, no, he didn't know. But they gave him courses anyway because I think they thought that they were going to give him a refresher. So they taught him how to rollerblade anyway after he got the job. But it is funny because he could have said no, and maybe that would have ended things there. But yeah, so it's kind of hilarious. He didn't rollerblade before this. And as you watch the show, you can kind of notice that he's a bit clumsy on his feet. Though in a way, it kind of suits the character that they're portraying at that time,
Yeah, definitely.
being a bit more clumsy.
Yeah.
But as the show progressed, like he gets better and better and better. And as far as I'm aware, last time I heard of him, I'm Facebook friends with him, but I don't go on Facebook anymore. But last time I was cognizantly aware of his life, he rollerblade every day still. Like this is something that
I
David,
wondered about that because I was watching he because I noticed like he kept the rollerblades through the whole series and I thought to myself at the end I was like if somebody is doing this like this probably lasted like 3 years I think he would have been rollerblading most of the time throughout those three
yeah,
years he would have had to get used to them and I could imagine if he got good enough that it would almost seem like a second nature type thing so
yeah. I think at this point it becomes muscle memory
yeah,
because
and
yeah,
to give that up, it would feel like losing a part of yourself.
yeah, yeah. He kept rollerblade. He didn't. I think he got a different pair of rollerblades. He did keep these rollerblades actually. He ended up selling them much later. But I was shocked that he kept them. I guess it makes sense. Why would they want to hang on to it? They got really scratched up, as you can
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
Anyway, he did sell them maybe like 5 years, more than 5 years ago. I don't remember to a dedicated fan. I didn't even know he had them. I don't know if I would buy them if I knew. And I would assume they were probably a precious memory that he wouldn't want to give up. And I wouldn't even ask. But fan did ask, and he sold them. Um, but I think it's really cool that a skill he learned for the show stuck with him.
Uh-huh.
And oh, another thing about Patrick's portrayal of the rabbit was, he's essentially in this fur suit.
Yeah,
It took ages to get to do all the makeup, and once he's in there, it was baking in there.
I can
It was
imagine.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really awful. At some point, he even passed out,
Oh,
and
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
yeah, they had to rip like the suit off of him, and they had like this thing. So basically, underneath all the fur is like this kind of what's the terminology for it? Almost like a refrigerator suit.
Cooling system.
Yeah, a cooling system, like a cooling layer, and it wouldn't be running while he was like dancing or acting on the show like in front of the camera. He would have to go to an outlet and plug in and then cool off.
Mm.
So he had to take pretty frequent breaks. As you continue watching the show, so there's kind of like two seasons. Actually, I'm not 100% sure when the first quote unquote season ends. The difference between them is the first season was filmed at the time Disney's MGM Studios, now Disney's Hollywood Studios in Florida. So they would
Hmm.
have people watching as they filmed, which I wish I could find footage of that, but they wouldn't allow anybody to record on the tours. So unfortunately, there's not. But
Hmm.
anyway, so during this time period when it was filmed there, he's a lot more prevalent in the episodes, basically in the stories. But then during the second season, so essentially they decided they wanted to film more. They moved it to California, to Studio City, California, which you would never be able to tell. Well, the set looks exactly the same. But at the time he was doing that, he's like, they changed his contract actually, so he was required to be there less. So in later episodes, he's not there as much. He's not as prominent. They also changed his head shape a little bit, I think, to kind of like not make it as unbearable regarding heat.
Mm.
But yeah, so if you did watch the full show and you notice he's not in it as much towards the end, that's why.
Okay.
But anyway, sorry, now I've just been talking about the realities of playing the character. But the character itself, I think Patrick does a fantastic job. I love his voice, and I think his personality is really interesting because it's kind of, well, the way Patrick described it was like he would kind of pretend to be like the rabbit feels like he's above everybody else.
He's a bit pretentious.
Yeah, he's a bit pretentious, which is funny because he's also kind of dotty and clumsy.
People are complicated.
Again, he's a complicated character. At this, he's dotty and clumsy, but at the same time, he's also like really talented.
Yeah.
He could clean, he could cook.
And do it all on rollerblades.
He does it all on rollerblades, and then he also does like a gazillion other jobs. At some point, he's basically kind of the postman as well, for the Red Queen at least, where he gets her mail. Errand boy, basically. I also think he's really sweet, but sometimes he could be kind of um, I want to say an a-hole. I don't want to like pull and curse, but again, that complexity. Anyway, do you have any thoughts?
When I first watched it, I thought, just looking at his face, I thought it might be an old man.
Oh,
And then I looked up who played him, and it was the guy who played Mr. Robitussin in The Princess Diaries. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. He was young when he did this.
Yeah. So there's a lot of makeup on him.
Yeah,
Which I mean, looking at it's obvious there's a lot of makeup. I don't know, just something about the way they did it up. Just for some reason, my brain thought it was an old man. I was thinking he's really talented old man to be able to do all the rollerblading.
yeah. He plays it as an old man, so that it's on purpose.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's probably one of my favorite rabbits in general.
Well, I suppose we can move on to Alice because we haven't really mentioned the titular character.
Well, I mean, like, well, she's. I think the thing about a lot of these children's shows, especially like this kind of show, is she ends up kind of being the token character for
Yeah,
the young audience to identify with.
yes.
So she's a little bit more blank.
Hmm.
That said, though, I think Elizabeth Harnoise does a good job. She's very pretty. I love her outfits.
Yeah, she was a great choice for Alice.
Yeah, honestly, she's a great actress. Like, especially as you like watch her progress throughout the show. Actually, I think the most interesting thing about like Alice's character and watching her is really seeing Elizabeth grow more and more confident in her acting abilities.
I thought that from watching because the way I watched it was like skipping around, but not going out of order. Like I'd watch one and then go ahead like 10, 20 episodes. And I could tell a definite progression of her acting from the beginning to the end.
I wonder if she sees it. I wonder if I'm sure she views the show fondly, but like I feel like she really started like coming into her own acting here.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Alice is a character. Thinking about it, so in a sense, she is kind of the creator of this world. It's her imagination, and she imagines all these characters, but she ends up being the voice of reason very, very often, or almost like the adult amongst children. I don't know, it's kind of interesting in that regard. It's actually a lot like the book now that I think about it.
Yeah.
She's the one who wants to imagine a world like this, but she's also the voice of reason. Though that said, like she has some moments of like where she's not as reasonable. Yeah, I mean, I believe she's a real kid.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. She's also not annoying, I think is
Mm.
I think a lot of Alice's
like actresses for Alice, they tend to err on the side of caution and go with someone a little bit older, just because
Mhm.
it is really hard for a kid to be in such a crucial role and not be annoying. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Really, the only one that I can think of right now that was fully not annoying that was really young was the one in the Svankmajer version.
The what version?
The Jan Svankmajer, the Czechoslovakian, the weird Alice.
Oh, the stop motion Alice. That
Yeah.
almost doesn't really count. She's more like a puppet.
Well, part of it, but when she's a real person, she's not annoying at all. I thought she was one of the best really young girls to play Alice.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like it's more curated in a sense because it's like she doesn't really talk.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I suppose that might be that might have something to do with it.
yeah.
I didn't think of that.
I mean, she does have moments. I don't know. It's a fair point. And then compared to like other Alices that are young, Natalie Gregory is not like the worst child actress ever. In fact, she actually can be quite good. But like the way she was directed in Alice, she
Yeah.
comes across as pretty annoying, to be honest.
Yes.
Like, I have made peace with it. I just ignore her when she's being annoying when I watch it. But I always admire when you have an actual child actress who's able to do Alice well in
Yeah.
that regard.
Yeah.
And I feel like Elizabeth is one of those. And considering, it would have been quite a lot of pressure as
Uh-huh.
well, because the filming was pretty intense. So they would do two, if I remember correctly, they would record 2 episodes a week, but also with like script readings and rehearsals for like the next episode in the next week.
Uh-huh.
So they were kind of like working on 8 episodes at once, in a sense, I guess you could say.
I mean, you'd have to, as I was surprised that there were 100 episodes. Well, 99, because
Yeah,
I guess I assumed that maybe there would be like 50 or 60. And since it only ran for 3 years, that's a lot of work to get that many episodes out in that short of a time.
yeah, they did it all pretty much almost at the same time. They did have the break in between.
Hmm.
But yeah, they did. There actually is a story that came out in interviews later where Elizabeth, so they were in Florida, I think, at this point, and she had like a cousin, and they stayed up way too late, like almost all night, in like a hot tub talking, and she lost her voice the next day, and obviously not good. When you're
Yeah.
supposed to be recording a show, she got scolded and everything. But considering that only happened once, and she was so young,
Uh-huh.
and it was just staying up in a hot tub for too long, talking for too long. I actually recently saw her in when I say I recently, I mean I watched it recently, not that she was recently in this, in a movie called One Magic Christmas, before this, which is a Disney film. And let me tell you, it's completely wild. And I won't, it's a weird film, but she plays like the daughter in it, and she is actually, I think, probably the best thing in the whole film.
Hmm.
She was really good.
I don't think I've heard of it.
Yeah, if it was done with another child actress, it probably wouldn't have been as good. Anyway, so Alice, she's good. Thumbs up.
Well, there are still two other characters that we haven't really talked about that are not exactly main characters, but they're always there, the Cheshire Cat and the Dormouse,
Oh
which
yeah.
are played by puppets.
So I love this Cheshire Cat. So he was sorry, I'm just like thinking about how they did the Cheshire Cat again. I'm like, oh my gosh. So he was being puppeteered by multiple puppeteers, and then Richard Coleman would do the voice, and he would do like the face motions of the puppet, obviously off screen.
Hmm.
It was kind of weird because he was part of the cast, but at the same time, not really, because they would have to add in the cat later.
Hmm.
They actually, the cast kind of had this, joke about like, oh, stupid cat, because now they have to act to air. There's nothing there. I think Richard would be there reading his lines, maybe, for them to act off of.
Hmm.
But it's really really impressive. Actually, Richard has been naughty, and he shared the bloopers from the first season with the fan who put them online. And when you watch these bloopers, you could actually see them like preparing for recording with the cat. He's like
just talking, saying random things. I don't recommend viewing these bloopers if you don't want to hear inappropriate content or cussing. Um, but he's just like saying random things in accordance to what's going on. Like he's talking to this person who's standing next to where the cat is on the blue screen or whatever. I don't know if it's blue screen or green screen. Um, and the rest of the puppeteers, while they're preparing and testing the cat, they're like going along with what he's saying, and I don't know, it's just beautiful puppeteer work. And the cat's kind of like creepy looking, but I don't know, I love him. And if I could buy him, I would. I think he was made by a company called the Chiodo Brothers, but I never was able to find out what happened to the cat after the show, and I'm kind of sad. I wish I knew where he was. I have a conspiracy theory, which I don't know if you want me to tell what I think might have happened to him.
Go ahead.
So there was a show called "Sing Me a Story with Belle," kind
Oh,
of
I
shortly
vaguely
after
remember
this.
that one too. I think I mentioned this when I was talking to somebody else. I only have like the vaguest half of a memory of watching that show because I remembered a show where like Belle was a real person but telling stories, but I've never found it to watch anywhere. I wonder if Disney Plus has added it yet.
No, they have not.
Oh, okay.
Um, but there are episodes on YouTube. Actually, a lot of the episodes are quote unquote lost right now.
Huh.
So growing up, I watched it on a videotape. Like they released an official videotape, maybe two, and I watched those tapes quite a lot actually. But as a kid, I actually wasn't aware that it was a show with like more episodes, but it was. Some of them are uploaded on YouTube, some of them are not. But there's a cat, I think called Harmony on that show, who looks a lot like the Cheshire Cat if he was reskinned. So I kind of wonder if maybe that's where he went. But I don't know. I've never heard one way or other what happened to the puppet. Anyway, do you have any thoughts on the cat?
Um, I liked a lot of it, but I didn't like the face very much.
That's fair. I think part of it is a lot of these kind of like puppets with like robotics in them, they end up looking kind of weird. I
Yeah.
will admit, he looks creepy.
Maybe that's it. Like I didn't think like when I look at him, I don't think creepy, but maybe like subconsciously my brain finds him slightly off-putting in that way. I don't know. I just don't love the face. Like I like the puppet, but the face is I don't know, just kind of off.
I feel like it kind of, I don't know. I think part of this is because I feel like it works for the character of the Cheshire Cat.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I like my Cheshire Cats to be a little off, unsettling and creepy. I don't want him to just be a normal cat.
Yeah. I guess in that respect he's a good one.
Yeah, so I think it adds to it for me. I don't know, the whole thing works together for me. He looks a little creepy and unsettling, but he also looks really fluffy, and I'd want to pet him. But and I think with Richard's voice, where he kind of his cat is not he's not a bad character or anything, but he's very very mischievous. And again, he's kind of on his own side. He's not really with, he's like, he is a Wonderlandian, but he's not really like with them either. Like, he's kind of detached from them. And I think that kind of I don't know, I like my cats to be there on their own side, like what entertains them.
Hmm.
So I kind of enjoy that he pops in. He's a bit opportunist, right? He's like, "Can I get something?" It's like, "Well, oh, you need help? Okay, bye." He's in it for his own enjoyment,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that. As for the Dormouse, to be honest, I don't really like the Dormouse.
I thought he was cute.
He's cute in like a 90s little nerd way,
Yeah.
but yeah,
He didn't do much, but I liked his design.
yeah. I appreciate that they're trying to be faithful to the book in that, there's a Hatter, Hare, and a Dormouse.
Hmm.
Um, but I think just because of the way they kind of like designed it with this little mouse with a little voice who like he's not really a part of them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, I definitely could see that. He's not a main.
he's almost like a pet.
Yeah, He just kind of pops up once in a while to react to something and then disappears again.
Yeah, he's like he lives with Hatter and Hare, but he's not like I don't know. It's like they take care of it. It's kind of like if he had a pet that talks. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's I don't know. I'm not feeling it. At the same time, though, like I don't know if I would like him to be like a bigger puppet or if I like him to be anthropomorphic person. I don't know what I would have done.
I like him as a little character. Like, to me, the Dormouse should always be tiny because it always feels weird when you have a giant person playing the Dormouse.
I mean, fair, I guess. But he's also like not really participating.
Yeah. Well, in the book and most versions, he's asleep most of the time anyway, so he's just kind of there.
I guess. Maybe I might like him more if we could see that he was sleeping. I don't know.
That actually would work. To have a little chair for him.
Yeah, or make it like when he disappears into the teapot, it's more clear that he's going to go sleep. I don't know.
Little cartoon sleepy snore noises coming out of the teapot.
Yeah, it seems like instead he just kind of like stops existing once he goes inside the teapot until he pops back out. And
Kinda,
I think
yeah.
yeah, and part of me I don't mind that in a sense because I don't care too much about him that he disappears, but I guess I don't really care that he disappears because I don't really have to engage with him when he's not there. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does, yeah.
Yeah. Credit where it's due, though. John Lovelady, from what I understand, he has extensive experience with like the Muppets.
Yeah, I saw his name and I was like, why do I know that name? And then I clicked on it and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, he's done all of this other stuff with the Muppets. That's why I know the name. Because he's
yeah,
probably been in the credits of so many things I've seen in the past.
he's an excellent puppeteer.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I don't know. I feel a little bit bad for him because it doesn't seem like he really like was able to connect with anybody else on the show because his character is just in a teapot and so he's under the table the whole time.
Was that the only thing he did, or did he help with any of the other
He might have
stuff?
helped with the cat. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think he's ever been talked to about his time on Adventures in Wonderland. It would be interesting to get his perspective
Yeah.
on the character because I wonder what he would have thought about his own character. I don't know. He doesn't really feel a part of it. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the characters. Obviously, we still have like, two more to talk about, but I figured maybe we could talk about them when we get to their episodes.
Yeah, we can move on to that because there are
Yeah.
two other Wonderland characters from the books that make apparently multiple appearances. I only watched one of each.
Mm.
But you've got the Duchess and the Walrus. I know Ken Page from something else, but Terry Garr, I should look her up because she looks so familiar.
She's most famous for Young Frankenstein.
I haven't seen that. That's one that's on
Oh,
my list that I need to see.
well, I mean, okay, yeah, you could look her up. I can't remember what else she is. All I know is she's most famous for that. Ken Page is most famous for Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes, he has a very distinct voice.
Yeah, I think he does a great job here, and I absolutely love his art chemistry with Armelia. Tell they're old friends.
Yeah, and the makeup on him looked great as well.
Yeah, actually, the makeup looks really, really good on him.
Like for a character like that in like lots of other kids shows, I could see it looking just wrong.
Yeah,
But for him, they did it in such a way that, like, yeah, he doesn't look perfectly like a walrus, but he looks like a good human walrus hybrid that's not creepy.
yeah, it surprisingly works,
Yeah.
and I think they really liked him, but they had him come back quite a lot more than the Duchess. To his credit, it looks like it's probably an uncomfortable costume, but to his credit, Ken never looks uncomfortable in it.
Yeah, he seemed natural as whatever he was trying to be, just a weird walrus
I'm like,
man, but it
I'm
seemed
like, I believe he is a walrus. I
yeah,
believe it.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, Terry. I never really, I don't know. I've never been able to connect with the Duchess character. I don't know because on the surface you would think, oh, the Duchess coming in having kind of a rivalry of frenemies with the Queen would be really interesting, right?
Uh-huh.
Or you would think that would be fun, but for some reason it doesn't translate well to me, and I don't know if it's just because maybe it's Terry or maybe it's just the way her character was written.
For me, like I liked
Yeah.
her. I thought she was a great actress and I enjoyed the character, but she didn't feel like the Duchess. And I think part of that is because she did not look at all like what you would imagine the Duchess to be. And she was also, I don't know, too fashionable.
I think it was the characterization where she's pretty on the outside, but not on the inside, kind of like the 1974 Italian Alice. So they probably
I
thought
could see
it would be
that.
unique. Yeah.
But when I think of the Duchess, I think of someone huge and loud and garish clothing.
Mm.
And she was just pretty and she was fashionable and it just didn't feel like the Duchess. I liked the character well enough, but it didn't feel like somebody I'd want to have come back all the time.
Yeah, actually thinking about it just now, I think I don't like the Duchess too much in this because I don't feel like Terry's connecting with the character very well that she's playing. But I don't know. That's just me.
Well, I looked her up and I see so many things on her page that I know I've seen, but it's all like one episode of this, one episode of that. So she's probably just one of those people that's sort of somewhere in the back of my subconscious because
Prolific.
I've seen her in so many things.
She's in a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
A lot of the things that I've noticed most frequently is voice roles, so that wouldn't be why I noticed her face. But she's a good voice actress.
Yeah. I will say, my sincere apologies, but she's not a very good singer.
I guess I didn't have enough exposure to her singing a lot, so I have no opinion one way or the other.
Yeah, I think the episode I chose for you, she only sings like one or two lines of the song.
Uh,
Um, but another episode, she has like a whole song to herself, and it's hard to get through. Um, anyway,
well, I think we're going to pause here for now because we've already talked a lot longer than I expected. So next time we'll come back and continue our conversation. But until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
yeah, of course. I am Phantomwise on YouTube, and also love Gift of a Fairy Tale on YouTube.
Okay, well, we will see you next week for more adventures in Wonderland. Thanks for listening to Wonderland Wednesday. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-host as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.
Pass through the looking glass into Wonderland.